What got you into tattoos?
Okay, so I waited over a year to get in.
I know that you do rope dart for Ninja X Machina.
Shoot him with my laser tag gun. Like, what's gonna happen here?
So, Sun, you are a multifaceted artist with one foot in the world of flow arts and the other in tattoo. And you are also a member of Ninja X Machina, so I think that we have so many things to chat about, and I cannot wait to get started. Thank you so much for coming, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you just got back from Soak and you're headed to Fire Drums soon. What was your experience at Soak like? And for the people listening, what is Soak?
So let's start with what is Soak. Soak is a regional burn, so a burn event. With that comes all the tenets of Burning Man. And in my description, I'll say it's a container similar to larger burn for processing, for play, for learning, for expression. Just a really beautiful experience. To say that, my Soak was very much mirroring all of those things. I had a really amazing camp this year. I camped with Pampered Campers. And so our service is a massage.
Cool.
We have a fluffing station, which is very tactile and it's like a sensory experience. And then myself and a friend of mine ran a sound bath. So kind of an all-encompassing experience.
Okay.
And it was well received, and it was a gift to even give.
No, that sounds great. And then for those who may be unfamiliar, what do you mean by service, and how does this contribute to the larger event and community?
Yeah. So service is like just kind of I would say an extension of gifting, and then also another extension of participation to tenets of Burning Man. So giving a gift, whether it be physical or your time or energy, to making the experience for someone else. Very much a service, very much a gift. And then, just being present and, physically there. I would say physically there in terms of participating. So showing up for your camp, showing up for other humans.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds lovely. What was one of the highlights for Soak for you? What did you do there? How did you spend your time?
So I ran sound bath. I sing singing bowls.
Ooh.
They're crystal singing bowls. Yeah. And that was by far one of the highlights for me. So just being able to witness other people, come and sit and meditate and just share space while I was able to facilitate that. A friend of mine plays flute, plays a number of instruments. He's very talented. And so just getting to play music with him was also very much part of that experience that really made it for me. Another highlight, I'll say, for kind of branching into flow, if you will, was so I was pretty low energy actually after the temple burn. I really had some ideas and some wants, I guess, to go and have a Sunday night burn. But physically, I just wasn't quite there. And so instead, I found myself towards the front gate. And if anyone ever watches this podcast, and these were you people, please know how much joy that you brought me. But I ended up sitting and watching a fire circle that was not, I'm going to want to try to say this delicately. Yeah. It was not a popular fire circle, if you will. It was not like the big production. It wasn't like, it wasn't really the spot. And I just found a lot of inspiration there. I found a lot of, it was just a really beautiful energy of people playing and cheering each other on, and just really, really a good presence. And I could tell that the people who were spinning fire were just really out there for the love of it.
Mm,
There was not a lot of like showmanship or ego. It looked like a lot of just pure play. And that was it really sits with me.
yeah.
So yeah, definitely another highlight. Um, two of my best friends got engaged.
Congratulations to them.
So yeah, if I could do like a public shout out to just even say
Yeah.
congratulations, Pete and Pooj. That was also another highlight. And watching our camp come together to rally around them in love um, was really beautiful. And I think something that I'm going to think about for a long time. So
I think a lot of the flow arts community, like a lot of it is bonded through close and intimate moments. Like you mentioned the fire circle, how it wasn't more one of the more popular ones, which, that has its own appeal and people like that for X, Y, and Z reasons. But for the smaller, more intimate ones, like the one that you just described, it's people going back to play and just kind of, they're doing it for the love of the activity and the love of themselves. It's not for others. It's not to show off. It's just to be present in your own mind, in your own flow. And that's nice. I think that's often overlooked.
yeah. Yeah. And thank you for your gracious wording on that as well. It was a very intimate circle and it was really beautiful to witness. So if that was you, great job. Thanks for bringing me a little slice of joy. It was really beautiful to see.
Yeah. So moving on from soak, you're getting prepared for fire drums. You feeling ready?
Yeah, I feel really good. I think also coming off the energy of soak and just having my cup full puts me in a good space for fire drums. I smile as big as I do because I've been pushing hard. I've been going a lot and doing a lot of things, and so yeah, I can recognize where this was a quick turnaround, but I'm, not complaining about my life in any way, shape, or form. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited.
Yeah. Another thing that I've noticed about the flow community is just how mindful we are of our current states, whether that being physically, am I tired? Am I feeling drained? Or just emotionally, am I in the right headspace to go do this? Do I want to be in front of
Mm.
a crowd? Am I ready and equipped to handle fire? Do I feel good about the environment that I'm stepping in? Am I comfortable? And I find that that's something that's often overlooked in other crowds and social circles.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I hear a lot of, yeah, be conscious in the fire circle. But I think that does extend to, really checking in with yourself. I think there's a reason why we all light up and, are drawn to the fire to begin with, that internal flame and kind of honoring that. And so, yeah, I very much agree with you in extending that to our check-ins with ourselves.
Yeah. So, in preparation for fire drums, what is fire drums and what makes it different than soak?
Ooh, okay. So Fire Drums is a fire and flow festival, more movement based
Mhm.
than soak, I would say. Um, More intentionally fire and more intentionally movement. And I would say the people who are there are really people who are looking to specifically hone their skill sets and hone their craft and participate within the fire community. Um, yeah, in contrast, I would say with soak, it's a broader demographic for sure. So um, I think with burn events, I will say too that fire is a thread throughout, and it is very much a gift. So even if you're out on playa and you get to witness someone burning, and it is seen as a gift in that regard. There is a good overlap there, but I think of fire drums as like summer camp for pyromaniacs, maybe.
Yeah.
For people who like fire specifically. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So by the time this episode airs, fire drums will have passed. But when what's something that you're looking forward to? What's some of the anticipation that you're building up towards experiencing?
Mm. Without a doubt, fire drums is a place where I get to really be physically present with the rope dart community. Rope dart was my first prop. I've been spinning it for about 6 years, and um, the community is just really tight knit, really, really cool community. And it's like that online and it's like that in person. And so when I go to fire drums, I know I get to like actually see and rope dart with these people that I look up to, and I get to, learn from on the internet, but even better because it's in person. So, um, additional to that, really looking forward to just being with my friends. Um, yeah, some more play and just learning new things. But I think for sure being with the rope dart community is definitely going to be a highlight.
Yeah, I mean, touching back on community, I think that's the biggest thing that I look forward to whenever I go to a bird event, like Kindle Northwest, for example. Like, I go there because I love the people. I mean, sure, there's a fire circle, there's instructors and workshops and all the other cool events that happen, but it's really for me the people that kind of bring the experience together. It's the quiet moments between performances or between workshops where I'm just kind of, I don't know, shooting the shit with someone, just sitting on a bench talking about nothing and the sun is nice. Like that's the parts that I remember.
Yeah, for sure.
So you mentioned rope dart. What did you find first? Was it spinning rope dart and then you found the community, or was it the community that got you into spinning rope dart?
Yeah. So I have to say it's probably the community. I saw rope dart. I had this experience at Oregon Country Fair, and I saw rope dart for the first time. And well, okay, so let me backtrack. So I camped with this guy, and he found out that I play violin. I also love music. I love art in every form. And he found out that I played violin, and he just went off. He just was talking so much about the violin and how he saw someone on a stage do like this power slide. And this performer like ended in a power slide with his violin, and he saw it and he just knew like in his heart of hearts that he needed to play the violin. And so that year, I was sitting around the Darling Fire Circle. I saw Sam Toby step into the fire circle with her rope dart. And I had that feeling. I had that feeling where I was like, what is that? I need to do that. Like in my heart of hearts, I just knew. And so, yeah, very much, I would say very much the community that inspired me. I think that's probably true for many rope artists in the community. They saw Sam Toby do her thing and was like, I got to do that.
Sure.
But it was not difficult for me to reach into the community. There's not a lot of like gatekeeping. If you want to learn something for rope dart, again, the community is really supportive. So I didn't feel like I had to learn X amount of things to ask questions. I felt like it was really accessible. So yeah, I sought out community pretty quickly after I started spinning, and I feel like I was received pretty quickly after I started spinning rope dart.
Cool. What was the first time spinning rope dart like? Because, I've dabbled in rope dart. I think I've smacked myself in the face no less than 30 times.
Yeah.
What was your experience like?
Oh, it's also very humbling. I actually have my first video that I ever took of me spinning rope dart. And there was a time where I had that video and I thought about deleting it because it's so cringe. And now that I am where I'm at now, I really cherish that. I can't remember. I was watching some other like flow video. It wasn't a rope artist. I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about how you're only ever a beginner at something once. And to actually, enjoy that and try to play in that space. And, it's really uncomfortable. It's hard to do because it's just like, oh man, I suck at sucking. Like this is really difficult. But yeah, I think back to that moment. And I had no clue. I had no clue at that time. I knew that I saw what I saw and that it spoke to me. I didn't know that I was going to spend 6 years of my life swinging this ball on a rope and that I was going to learn to love it so much. But yeah, the first time was humbling and also, the start of something really cool.
Yeah. If you could go back 6 years ago, is there a piece of advice or a tip or a trick that you would give yourself, someone who's learning rope dart for the first time?
Yeah, maybe two pieces of advice. Just patience. Be patient with yourself, a little bit more patient. Okay, three. So patience, practice, and terminology. Learn your terminology. I might sound like a little bit of a stickler when I say that, but if you can figure out how to ask questions about what you want to do, even if you can't do that move, it will help you. It will help you learn. It'll help you learn how to get access, I guess, to what you are seeking a little bit earlier.
I really like that. I mean, patience and practice, those are there for obvious reasons, but the terminology thing, that's interesting because without that, you can't seek help. You can't communicate to someone more experienced than you and ask them like, "Hey, how do you do this?" Or I'm struggling with this technique. If you don't know what it's called, it's really hard to reference and it's really hard to seek advice on that. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a couple people ask me questions, and they want to know how to do the loop-de-doo, and I'm like, which loop-de-doo though? Be really specific. So yeah, I definitely recommend learning some terminology. And for those that have learned from me, people who are local to Portland, they can tell you that I ask them really specifically what they want to do.
Okay.
So yeah.
On that thread, do you have a favorite loop-de-doo? A favorite move or a trick or something that you've learned?
Yeah. Okay. I really like leggy things. I really like leg tech. With that, I learned it's like a binded cradle from Red Rope Charlie. I have to shout her out. And I learned it at a Dark Democracy in one of her classes maybe 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's one of my favorite moves.
Okay.
It's a sequence of moves, actually,
Sure.
but it is one general big, larger move. And it's something that I don't really get to do on fire very often, if at all.
Okay.
I tried it once and I got really scared.
Happens.
But yeah, I would say that would be some of my more favorite tech.
Okay.
Oh, hello.
I know. She loves to say hi.
And yeah, I would say that there's another rope dartist. His name is Aaron Stanger. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I met him at Fire Drums last year, and I think everything he does is just gold. He just has some of the coolest tech. He recently put something out called Leg Weave Illusions that I learned, and I just love the look of that as well. Yeah, I could probably go on for a while about different tech.
Yeah, I mean, rope dart has so many. I view rope dart as magic the same way I view levy wand as magic. Like, when you see someone skilled at it, like really, really skilled, it looks effortless. And then when you try to do the exact same thing, you realize, oh my God, this is so complicated. How did they do this? And it's just the skill ceiling, or just to get started, feels very tough and intimidating. But I imagine once you get the moves down and you have some, I don't know, reps under your belt, it must feel so satisfying.
Yeah. I had a friend who doesn't rope dart actually, explain it to me in a really interesting way that obviously has stuck with me and I think about. But they kind of made this point that rope dart is like playing with both the past and the future
Hmm.
versus no shade to anyone, but like versus like more like a poi, for example, is kind of just like, okay, you're in this position, you're doing this tech, and then you just move on to the next thing versus like, for example, with rope dart, if you're doing cradle work, if you're doing any kind of like empty knots, there's a point in which you would hold and you would keep holding. And you kind of have to remember your pathways for how you got in
Hmm.
so that you can get out. It doesn't
Yes.
work if you don't remember your pathways. And so, to that effect, they were saying it's like playing with the past and also playing with the future.
Okay. I think I can relate to that a little bit. So I did silks for circus, aerials, and that kind of thing. And to do drops, you
Yeah.
have to wrap yourself in the silks very specifically. Because you're
Yes.
setting up the move, you're planning and you're getting yourself all prepared. And then you do the drop and you unravel, and it's really cool. But it takes all of that preparation and the planning and the foresight to pull that tech off well. I imagine rope dart is pretty
Yes.
similar.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly that. Yeah.
Okay. No, that sounds awesome. So I know that you do rope dart for Ninja X Machina. How did you make that acquaintance, and how did that relationship form?
So that so collectively as a group, the other members of Ninja X Machina are my best friends. And I feel like initially, I met Xander at Oregon Country Fair a few years
Really?
ago. That same year, I attended Pacific Fire Gathering back when it was Pac Fire,
Yeah.
and just kind of over the years got to know him a little bit more. Um, Met his partner Alex, and became friends with them as well. And then through Xander, also met Ko at Pac Fire years ago. And that friendship has also bloomed beyond just a friendship of a friend of a friend. So when Ko comes to town, they stay at our place as well.
Cool.
We kind of all just became homies. At one point, Lyra lived with me and my partner, and so yeah, we're all just kind of friends. And it wasn't so much as anything super formal, but just like hey, let's do this thing. They had done Ninja X Machina the year
Yeah.
before, and I had expressed interest in going to Neo and also joining in, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
So yeah, I feel really fortunate to have friends that are interested in making art together and also really badass ninjas. So
Yes, I love it. Were you at Neotropolis 2023 with the Ninja X Machina?
no, I was not. So that was, I believe, the second year of Neotropolis.
I see.
Yeah, yeah. And then this year was the third year. And this year I joined in as May Mars, evil villain, super
Ooh.
evil. And so it was, it was a really fun performance for me.
I asked about 2023 because I've seen the videos of that one and that's fantastic. But I know nothing about 2024. Could you fill me in a little bit?
Yeah. So this year's plot line included myself and our DJ Damien as evil villains, kind of being controlled through different types of like hacking, if you will. And I just, I think in 2023, the storyline was a little bit more internal. So they were kind of fighting each other and getting calibrated with each other. And so this year I came in as an external evil force. And then ultimately was converted into being a ninja, again, through more hacking. So it was a really great show. We had all original music from our DJ Damien. We had some interesting things happen with our choreo. Also, why I'm really grateful to work with friends. So some last minute hiccups, if you will, for the show. But we ended up pulling it off, and again, it was also really well received for those that got to see it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I mean that's the thing about live performances. It almost never goes how you plan. Like you can choreograph for days and weeks and months and potentially years, but when you actually get to the performance itself, like life will find ways to throw curveballs at you. I don't know, a prop gets slightly moved because someone kicked it and you don't know where it is,
yeah,
or like something is dropped, or something wasn't lit the way it should, it just wasn't gassed enough so the fire goes out early. Like life happens and you have to kind of adapt on the fly and make the best of it.
totally, totally. And we definitely experienced that this year. And again, like just so grateful for friends that know how to adapt and are gracious with that as well too.
Cool. Can you give me a little bit more backstory about your character? So, for context, on a previous podcast episode, I was chatting with Alex, and she was giving us the whole backstory on her character and how
Yeah.
it becomes more and more fleshed out as the years go on, and that character's lore starts to get interwoven with the lore of Neotropolis itself. Can you tell us a little bit about your character?
Yeah. So I actually don't have a whole ton about my character. I think I'm still in that phase of learning who she is. Her name is May Mars. She doesn't talk a whole lot and, is super evil, but is she? Because she kind of gets converted to
Yeah.
just being one of the crew, a ninja at the end of the show. And thus far, I can tell you she is an android. She was created with human DNA, though. So she has capacity for feelings. That old
Of
story.
course.
Um, but yeah, as far as more details into her background, there's still kind of that story's still kind of being written a little bit.
Okay.
So
The Speaking with some writer friends of mine and like character creation and lore and backstory, what they've described to me is, everyone goes in with an idea of what a character should be. You have some idea of their character arc and, some of the trials and tribulations that they've gone through. But when you actually sit down and start to flesh out the story, they seem to take on a life of their own in ways that you couldn't have really predicted from the onset. I always find that part fascinating. Are you kind of experiencing that as you're toying with story elements?
I think so. I think I'm just waiting for it to kind of come to me as it will. And I think more specifically, for me being part of a role playing game has always been really interesting to me, but it's still pretty new. And so I think as I am in as more Neotropolis that I go to, as I'm more in that setting, I think those pieces will come to me as I engage a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Like Neotropolis sounds like a really fun, immersive place. The ability to play, and role play and interact with the other people. On that note, what has been one of your favorite experiences at Neotropolis?
Okay, so I'm really glad that you brought that up, especially as we're talking about role playing. So again, I am fairly new to role playing. I feel like I'm pretty good at riffing off other people, but I'm not always, when I'm put on the spot, I get a little shy about just making something up. And so we were playing laser tag. We met a friend there, and we were playing laser tag. They brought it with, and it was like low key laser tag. We were in this club called Kaiju, and the goal was we were teamed up, and the goal was to, do your first round in Kaiju and then move over to the Mega Block. And so the first kind of bit of role play, I would say this was just like a highlight of being at Neo in general, was role playing, and just getting to participate in that way. But the first bit of role play that I did, that felt really natural and really good to me, was this couple was trying to get into Kaiju, and they could go in the other door. There's not a bouncer at the other door, but for the sake of role play,
Yeah.
you know, they're trying to interact with this bouncer and the bouncer's kind of giving them a hard time. So I interrupted their conversation and asked them to cover me while I went into Mega Block. And they did. And it was, they were so psyched to just do this for me and to engage. And so they covered me. And I kind of crouched down low and was kind of crawling around the ground. um, and you know, they were walking around as if they were on a date, you know, just there to stroll Mega Block. And then I split off from them and I found a really good hiding spot where I could see everyone else walk by. And I'm like in there thinking like, yeah, I'm going to win laser tag. Like, this is going to happen because I have this spot. And this random guy came through and he was dressed in like war core, like a sentinel and kind of like an officer, if you will. And he must have seen me kind of like just poke out and check to see if anyone was around. And he came in and he swept the room. So it was an empty room. And he came in just like total military guy, like swept the room. And then I just had this moment where I was like, am I going to pop out? I'm going to like shoot him with my laser tag gun. Like, what's going to happen here? And then he quietly left. And it was a really cool exchange. It was definitely like a highlight. I think maybe just from like wanting to like, you know, being amped up from playing laser tag and really wanting to get my friends. But just, it was really cool because it kind of showed me that the interactions that other people wanted to also interact, that the maybe like my anxieties of like, oh my gosh, am I going to get this right with the role playing, and is this going to even be fun? You know, it kind of showed me like how much fun it really was and how even like someone's small action of just walking through to this other place, how that could really impact me and my experience. And then same with the, you know, coming in, sweeping the room while I was in there hiding. It was just like a different way of interacting that wasn't like all dialogue based, that really helped to shape that experience for me. And it just kind of showed me like how much fun it is and what it can be.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so glad that you got to have that experience.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
The level of immersion that I keep hearing about Neotropolis, to me, I haven't been yet, but I plan on going. It seems to be that's the highest selling point. That seems to be what makes it so fun and engaging. Because, like you said, it's the non-dialogue. People talk to each other all the time. They role play. It's whatever. But it's those non-dialogue options and interacting with people in strange and unique ways that never would happen in real life. It allows you to kind of live that and experience that moment with all of the emotions and, you know, other sensory things that you get. I'm sure you being crouched in a dark corner, like, you know, you feel different. You're hiding. There's a sense of, you know, tension and anxiety. None of this is spoken. It's really cool. You just don't get to experience that in day-to-day life usually.
Yeah, definitely. It is a very, you know, you kind of brought that up. It is an incredibly immersive experience. And I kind of compared it to Burning Man because that's the only other desert experience that I have where like things are being offered and whatnot. And for the same reason, well, I guess for the opposite reason, that Burning Man is so unique and beautiful is because at any given point, you could be doing anything. There's so many different offerings at Burning Man. But Neotropolis is just so cool because it's so immersive that you don't really have to mentally like even be there. You're just there. It's so dense that just by being there, you're on Kepler. Like you are there, you're doing it. And so it really is like its own place. It's its own setting.
No, I'm definitely going to have to check it out. Just the more I hear about it, it just sounds like this amazing experience.
Yeah, I'm happy you're sold. I'll see you there next year.
See you there next year. So taking a step aside from the world of flow arts, you mentioned you do tattoo. So just another facet of your creativity and your creative endeavors. What got you into tattoos?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm really new to tattooing. I love it. I love it so much. I was freelancing doing web design for years. And I've kind of had some inklings for tattooing for a couple throughout my life, I guess, for a couple different times. And I finally kind of just like took the leap with it, I guess. I read this book called The Artist's Way. I highly recommend it if you haven't read
I
it.
haven't, but okay.
And they talked about what they call like shadow artists. And I felt really called out. They talked about how people go into these professions and they really think they're going to be they really think that they're going to be fulfilled creatively, but they find that they're not. And it comes from a place of like fear of actually doing the art. And I just kind of got to that point. It was just like, I'm still missing this thing in my life. And so I find reward in helping people get organized, helping small and micro businesses. But I was still really lacking that creative piece. When you are freelancing, you wear a lot of hats and you do a lot of things that aren't really what you think you're going to be doing, why you set out to do it to begin with. And so, yeah, I had that realization when I read that book. And, I think there's always that question of like, what if? And I was still kind of asking that to myself, like, what if I actually just did art? What if? So yeah, I guess I'm just trying to do it. I'm still doing some website work. I'm grateful that my clients are sticking with me while I'm journeying through something new. But yeah, I love tattooing. So yeah, it's new for me. I'm currently in tattoo school in Portland. It's a really good school. It's called Point of View Tattoo. I waited over a year to get in. Their wait list is really long. Yeah. And just kind of for some context, the state of Oregon actually has some really thick rules and regulations for getting your tattoo license, which actually makes me feel pretty good. Even though as I've been like going through this, it's like it has meaning. Not to say other states don't, but it's, it does set a bar. It is regulated. And so that makes me feel really good about going to school for tattooing. And I am about somewhere over 40 procedures in.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so, yeah. So I get licensed at 50. The criteria is 50 procedures and 150 hours. So you can't just put a dot on someone and say, that's one.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I've already hit that hourly mark because I tend to do larger detailed pieces. And because when I started, I was really slow. But yeah, as I've learned my hand and learned more of the technique, I've gained speed. And yeah, I'm really, really happy to be at this point in my life where I'm doing art.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Getting to do tattooing, yeah.
Yeah, for frame of reference, roughly how long have you been tattooing for? I'm assuming it's somewhere over a week and less than 10 years, but like, where's the...
Yeah. So I started tattooing in November of 2023.
Okay.
So 5, 6
months?
6 months. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see, 6 months, you've already hit your 150 hours, and you've done 40 pieces of work. That's really cool. I feel like that's really prolific for that amount of time.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Yeah, I tend to be a person that when I decide I'm going to do something, I am going to do it. So I think that's a good, maybe some good like proof of that is to be able to look back and say, like, quantify this time that I've been doing that.
Yeah.
So
what is tattoo school like? I have absolutely no frame of reference.
Tattoo school is like wild. It's so there's so much like duality there. You just have like a ton of artists, which is like that's all I wanted in life is just to be surrounded by artists. So definitely like lots of ideas, lots of art, lots of just like silliness, quirkiness, like creativity. But then the other side of it, because like I was saying before, like Oregon is really regulated. You have like this pretty strict side of sanitation and what does a good procedure look like. And we're not messing around with these chemicals and what is a process and even like how to, you know, communicate with your clients in a really professional way so that there's no um, miscommunications or that, everyone's on the same page because what we're doing is really serious. It's not, you know, like totally cool for those that are like, hey, it's Tuesday, it's tattoo time Tuesday. And that's awesome. But also it's like really serious because it's like, we're going to mark your body forever. Like, is there consent? Is there, are we on the same page with design? And that's, people who are in this profession for a long time are taking their art very seriously. So very, very much a duality in that. And when I say it's wild, it's like, it just encompasses a lot of everything, a lot of silliness and play, but then also like rapport with your clients. And again, like the sanitation, lots of rules, lots of cleanliness things. Yeah. But it's been a really good experience for me.
What was it like the very first time putting needle to skin?
So I tattooed myself for my very first tattoo. Also wild. So there was very much a feedback loop happening. And for anyone who's like ever interested in getting like into tattooing, highly recommend tattooing yourself first. Because I learned a lot through that and it kind of built up my confidence in actually being able to tattoo other people. But yeah, there was initial feedback loop, a lot of shakiness for me in being tattooed, and then also shakiness from tattooing.
Sure.
So double adrenaline. It was a great experience though, and I have my tattoo on my leg. I can be a little perfectionist. And so there was a brief moment there where I was like, okay, anything I mess up that I don't like, if my lines aren't clean, I'll just go over them again. And now when I see this tattoo, I'm like, I did that. Like, this is the start. This is like my proof and my start of this journey, which I waited a really long time to do. It took me a long time to come around to actually doing art as a profession. And so for me at this point, I'm like, that is how it's supposed to be. I'll probably never touch up that tattoo. Just kind of as a reminder of like where I started, and having that reminder.
Yeah, I think the imperfections are what makes it special. Like, you can go to a tattoo shop, they can throw a trace on your arm or wherever. Hell, they can even have a machine do it in some cases. And it comes out perfect, almost clinical.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the imperfections that I think really lets the artist's style shine. So for you, the level of skill that you had at that time, the fact that you're doing it yourself to yourself, and your adrenaline is high, there's shakiness in your hand potentially, or your leg is squirming because it hurts. All of this adds and is captured in that moment and the essence of that tattoo. So that's really cool.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think of it very much like photography, right? You're a photographer, like just capturing the essence of that moment. Maybe in a slower process, but yeah, slower, more painful process, I guess.
You mentioned it took a little while for you to, take the leap and start doing art as a profession and going into tattoo. What do you think were some of the things that you were feeling that kind of prevented you from taking that leap sooner?
I think, I think it was just fear. I think it was a lot of fear. I kind of had this voice in the back of my head that came from my childhood, that came from someone in my childhood that told me that you could either be a starving artist or you could be an art teacher. Those are your options. And clearly I'm doing better because I chose tattoo artist. So um yeah, no, I think I had that in the back of my head. And you know, at the end of the day, I think art teachers are lovely. I learned a lot from my art teachers. And I think also at the end of the day, like if I'm living my truth as an artist and creating, then I guess I'll choose starving artist. So, yeah, I I had fear. I think it was fear that held me back. And maybe also not having a lot of other models in my childhood for working artist. So, a girl that I went to school with now does like 3D rendering for like medical companies. Like that's art. She does art. She does digital art for medical companies, basically. Yeah, seeing different people. I have a friend who builds stages. That's art. So I think just not having models of art too. And so having that voice paired with not having concrete examples of what art looks like in real life. Um, I think I believed that voice for a really long time.
Yeah, I think having role models is huge because, like you said, it's hard to envision yourself doing something if you have no idea what that path looks like. So to date myself, I'm 31. I was born in 1993. And when I was a child, like the internet was relatively new. Like you
Yeah.
couldn't, search for things, at least not as ubiquitous as it is today. And like when you go to school, like the stereotypical career paths are like, oh, you can become a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, an accountant. Those are very well-traveled paths. You know exactly what that looks like. But nowadays, I think, we get to see more artists doing their craft in a very public fashion through YouTube or Twitter or Instagram or just any, social media platform. And I think having that visibility in the creative and art space hopefully is a positive to all of the aspiring artists hoping to go down that path because they can see it being done. You can ask questions about like how the business actually operates. There's such a wealth of information to help guide your path nowadays that didn't exist before. I'm not sure if that was your story, but that's kind of how mine was.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It's like, it's resources. It's resources. And knowing that you're not, like walking this path alone.
So I was looking over your tattoo Instagram and I noticed a lot of common themes there. I see a lot of kunai, so ninja stuff. I see a lot of flowers. Can you tell a little bit more about, the type of art you like to create and the images you like to draw?
Yeah, I think I'm still figuring that out, honestly. I love flowers. I love gardening. So that's something that I get from my childhood. Um, I love weapons. I think that I think that might be, I think I kind of wonder if everyone who's in the flow scene likes weapons.
Yeah.
Seems to be a bit of a crossover there too. Something that I've been thinking a lot about and something that I want to be working towards um, in the future is new age representations of older mythologies.
Ah,
So redepicting more more ancient mythology stories in a more new age style. And let me kind of take one step back and say that new age is actually a style of tattooing. My style, it kind of is like an umbrella term for anything that doesn't fit into like American traditional or neo traditional. Those are very distinct styles. Ornamental, very distinct style. You'll know it when you see it. But I would very much classify my style as illustrative or just general new age, where it's not quite fitting into the the other existing styles. So, and that's kind of where I'm at right now with it. But yeah, I would like to start working towards that. representation is really huge for me. So specifically Asian representation, Asian twists on different mythologies. I think that's something that I'll be doing in the future. I painted a piece for Soak and was part of like this like a newsletter project. So the piece that I painted was actually for the newsletter stand, and was also able to bring some Asian representation into that event, which was really important for me. So I think I'll continue down that path.
Yeah.
I think it will also look like some geometric designs. It will also include botanicals. There will be clouds. There will be lots of cloud motifs because I love clouds. Yeah, I just also kind of just like working away at trying to figure out like what that style does look like on paper for me.
Okay. Yeah. Looking at your style, I've noticed, some consistencies among each of the pieces that you made. You have a very distinctive line art in how you do the thicknesses and how you move through different patterns and shapes. And I noticed it in the botanicals, like you mentioned, the flowers and the other stuff. There was also there was a Greek piece. I think I saw Atlas holding up something, but the way you did the lines, I could be like, oh, that's Sun's tattoo. I can recognize the aesthetic.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I had a ceramic teacher. It's a huge compliment for me to hear that. So thank you so much for saying that. I had a ceramics teacher in high school talk to me about an artist's voice and how when you see a piece of art and you know whose art it is, then that artist has a voice. And so I just want to, really thank you for that compliment because that's what I'm hearing when you say that.
Of course, absolutely.
And I want to talk about that piece because that was something else that I'm really passionate about is body symmetry pieces. You might have thought I was going to Greek mythology. I'm going to body symmetry. And that piece was so much fun. Those pieces were so much fun because what those pieces are, they're actually holding up butt cheeks. So those are back of thigh pieces. It's Atlas and Sisyphus. And instead of holding up their round things, the rock and the world, they're holding up other physical round things.
I love it.
And so I will also say that I really love body symmetry pieces. And I really love getting to do pieces that are fun and just like so unique. When I got that request, I was just like over the moon about it. Just so stoked. But yeah, I was really happy with how those pieces came out.
Yes. So when someone gets a tattoo, I imagine there's, I feel like there's a little bit of a give and take of, if let's say I'm searching for a tattoo, I have something in mind. I have an idea of, an image, an aesthetic, a style, or imagery. But you as a tattoo artist, you have things that you like to do. You're known for a style, an image, an aesthetic, and all the other stuff. How do these people come and meet each other? Does someone just walk into a tattoo shop and say, I would like a star and a bird, please? Or do they find you and they say, I saw your Instagram. I really like your pieces. Would you like to work with me and design something custom? How does that go?
Both. Yeah, both ways. I had literally that same scenario in which somebody called the school and said, I'm looking to be tattooed today. I would like a star.
Yeah.
And they came in and I tattooed a star. And it was as cut and dry and as simple as that. I had a friend who I was just with at Soak and he asked me to do a prompt. So he gave me a prompt and the prompt was the moon's on fire. I'm smoking with my friends.
Yes.
And it was something that I saw when I thought about it. I just saw this Art Deco lady. She's in the shape of a moon. She's kind of doing like the circus thing, right? She's kind of circusy. And, she's smoking on this like really long, like 1920s cigarette stick, holding a crystal ball a contact juggling ball,
Yeah.
a crystal ball, if you will, for, to nod to the illusions of the moon. And so it was I was very much given a lot of creative freedom in that piece. And so it works both ways. I think ultimately for me, it's seeing that my client is happy with the work. And if, what that looks like in the scenario is my client saying explicitly, I want this thing. This is what this represents to me, and this is how I want to wear it on my body,
Mhm.
then let's go, let's do that. And if, my client is telling me, I trust you, do your thing. Here's the prompt, I'm happy to run with it.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So there's really all kinds of interactions you have between, yourself and your client. Um,
and
Overall, and I'm intentionally being vague, what do you think your favorite aspect of tattooing is?
lines
Lines?
lines in general. Yeah. I Okay, so I had this kind of a moment where I started tattoo school and it kind of freaked out. And I was like, what am I doing? And should I be doing this? And what did I get myself into? And, I also put not really put my life on hold for this, but I really did some like things to align so that I could give my attention to tattoo school and
Mhm.
actually do this thing. And so I kind of was like, did I do the right thing? Did I choose the right thing? Um, and then I tattooed myself and realized I like fell in love with pulling lines. And that's how I knew that I like really love tattooing. Like that's how I knew it was for me,
Mhm.
because even pulling a clean line, that reward that I get from that, um, is it just like, yeah, I'm really passionate about it. I love the lines, just the lines themselves. So, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's the simple pleasures of a craft that really, I don't know, I think make the experience. Like, it's very easy to fall in love with like the big grand things that deliver at the end of I don't know, a piece of art, but it's the nuance. It's like stippling or line work or shading. If you enjoy that, you're gonna love the activity and the art as an art
yeah.
form. So, how do you do straight line work on a person? Because I know when I'm drawing on a piece of paper, I can take a pencil or a pen and a ruler and I just draw a line and I align it to the ruler. That doesn't really work on someone's arm. So, how does that work?
So that is a really deep question, and there's a whole lot of technique that goes behind pulling lines. But unless you're given the permission to freehand or freestyle a tattoo, you are working off a stencil. So one of the big things that they taught us initially in school was always trust your stencil, because the body curves, it is not straight. Um, and there's so much variables in tattooing, but trust your stencil. And when you're doing like a freestyle piece, which happens a lot with like more organic things like botanicals, you're not really going to see a lot of freehanding in geometric work unless that person is really experienced. But yeah, happens a lot with botanicals. Even so, that is usually drawn on with a Sharpie first. So you still have a stencil thing happening. I don't think it's usually, in my experience and from what I know of tattooing thus far, it's not really like a free hand where I'm just going to start with ink.
Mhm.
It's like a sketch out with some Sharpies first. Yeah, always trust your stencil. That's how you get a clean line, a straight line. You follow that path that's there, that you intentionally put there.
Okay.
So, and with that, there's a lot of other things like positioning when you put the stencil on. So, for example, if I were to be doing like an under rib cage piece and I have that person lifting their arm up, that skin is stretched, versus in like a more natural position. And so it matters how you put the stencil on as well. There's
Mm.
technique there.
Do you have a favorite part of the body to work on? Is it a leg or a back or a bicep or a neck or something?
Um, so I haven't actually I've tattooed a lot of body parts, but I haven't actually tattooed them all. So it's kind of hard to say. I think calves are really generous in terms of like skin tautness. But calves can be really spicy for people. So people get really twitchy there. I don't know that it's necessarily like my favorite to tattoo um, because generally like people are really in pain there. I've been told again and again that I'm very light-handed, but even so, like I've tattooed calves and people were very twitchy in that
Yeah.
spot. Um, Similar to a rib cage tattoo, I've tattooed a rib cage, a couple of different rib cages, and it's very painful for the person. And so even though it's like a big open area of canvas that you think would be like so nice to be there, if the person's really in pain and is having a hard time being tattooed in that area, it doesn't quite equate to it being like a fun tattoo.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I did tattoo a neck, and so every time you do it, you learn, right? And so something that was really eye opening for me with tattooing the neck, which I didn't anticipate, was that on the back side of the neck, like if you go kind of back here, um, it's fine. Everything's taut. It's not. There's nothing really happening that's like out of the ordinary. Um, but on the front side of the neck, your heartbeat pushes the needle
Yeah.
out of the skin. And so, different body parts tattoo really differently. I could tattoo, like I mentioned before, I tattooed um, same person, back of both thighs. And, the skin higher or lower can be different. The skin on each leg can be slightly different. So there's kind of when I was talking again before about different variables with tattooing, there's different things happening all over and different bodies, different people, also tattoo very differently. So I could tattoo 10 calves and they all kind of are just like different. They're just different because they're different people. But the question, the question was if I have a favorite spot. I guess I will say calves because calves are very generous in terms of the skin tautness in general. So, and maybe like upper arm because people don't really experience pain there. They kind of are
Yeah.
just like, a little tickle. Um, yeah, yeah.
As a tattoo artist, how do you deal with, the twitchiness of the person being tattooed? Do you just have to take a break and let them recompose themselves? Do you kind of adjust, or do you like anchor yourself to their body so you move with the twitch? Like what's the technique there?
Yeah, I think all three. I can distinctly pinpoint times where it's been all three. The person that I've anchored myself on, kind of asked me to do that. And then also they're one of my best friends. So I had that level of physical comfortability to do that with them. I don't think that I would do that to just any client. But yeah, we were, halfway through the tattoo and they're like, just lock my leg in, just do it. They're like, I'm over this. I want this done. I trust you. And yeah, so they gave me consent to do so. In general, twitching is very involuntary. So, this whole like every tattoo artist wants their person to like sit really well. And I think there's like a culture of like congratulating people because they sit good. But I also think it's really important to just kind of put out there that twitching is involuntary and doesn't mean you're not a good sitter. The body just responds, especially when you're in pain for so long, and tattoos are painful.
Yeah.
So, I generally just try to like remember to like pull away really quickly. So if there's like a twitch, I try to like just get my needle out cleanly to make sure that we're not marking while the twitch is happening, because that can leave marks places you might not want them.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think those that are getting tattooed generally understand that their bodies can respond, and that is a possibility. And yeah, just kind of talking through that as well.
I think it's something interesting that you brought up. Like, I always thought it would be, as if I was to get tattooed, I'm just going to white knuckle it through it. I'm just going to be here nice and still, and I won't twitch. And I thought sheer willpower would get me through that, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And if it's not the case, then it's good that people destigmatize that, because it's not within someone's control. Like, for me as a photographer, like, yeah, there are absolutely tips I can give you to model a little bit better. But ultimately, the responsibility falls on me, the professional, to do my job well, to make it so that no matter what situation I put in, I will get the job done of high quality. So, interesting.
Yeah, I agree. There's like different variables. And, something I also want to kind of touch on too is like I've had some of my close friends like come in and apologize to me about their body hair, or just like that their socks aren't matching or something. And I think we just get like really embarrassed as humans about being human.
Yeah.
And these things that are just like so involuntary. And I find myself doing it too, where I'm just like, I'm sorry. Like, I'll go in to get a tattoo and I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't shave. It's just like, we're human.
Yeah.
We're all in these meat suits. Like, we're human. So, I never want my clients to feel bad because they came in as themselves that day, or because they twitched, or because, they have like dog hair on their socks. Like, I'm so happy they have a dog, So, yeah, I want them to feel comfortable.
Of course. So, as a closing tradition on the show, the previous guest leaves a question for the current guest, and they don't know who they're leaving the question for. So, the question left for you is, what do you do to spark your creativity? Is it a routine? Is it an environment? Is it a song? What do you do for you?
Okay. I think for me, getting out and seeing things that I haven't seen before, or like having experiences. So, like, for example, I just got back from Soak, super inspired, like just super full of ideas, and kind of having some revelations for myself, in which I'm really thinking about and trying to figure out, like, how do I alchemize this? How do I turn this into art, this feeling or this experience that I had? I think that really helps me in honoring and continuing my creative path. Yeah.
I love it. I'm glad that you have something that works for you. That's great. Well, Sun, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate having you on the show. The level of insight that you brought in for both flow arts and tattooing. I've learned a lot of cool things, so thank you so much. Where can people find you, and where would you like to draw people's attention to?
Okay, I have to plug my tattoo page.
Of course.
People can find me on Instagram. I have my tattoo page, which is similar to my personal page, but it's Bari Sun Art. So it's BARI.SUN_art. If you are interested in following my flow page, which is more my personal page, it's just Bari Sun. So BARI.SUN. So if you want rope dart videos, that's what you're going to find there, and pictures of my dogs. But if you want tattoos, hit up my art page, please.
Cool. Absolutely. All of those links and handles can be found in the show notes down below. Sun, I really appreciate your time. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself too.
Thank you. Yeah, I have. Thank you so much for hosting me. It's been lovely.
Cool. Absolutely. Cheers. Take care. Bye.
Bye.